Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of College Hockey Talk. On today's podcast, I'm joined by redshirt sophomore from the AIC hockey team and Carolina Hurricanes draft pick, Jake Kucharski. Welcome to the podcast, Jake, and how's everything going?
Oh, first, thanks for having me. Really excited to be doing this, and things have been going well. I mean, we're getting into the bulk of our season right now, and starting to string some games together. So things are going well.
Yeah, and you just had a series against Bentley, so just talk a little bit about that and what'd you take away from it?
Yeah, I mean, going in, we knew Bentley. They're a team that obviously beat some pretty good teams. I think they beat Boston College and Ohio State earlier in the year. So we know they can score, and just playing them previously, we kind of know what game they're going to play. So first night we did a really good job. We were able to come out, put up five. The boys are great in that one, and then second game we had a little more trouble scoring. Unfortunately, lose that one in OT, but there's a lot of good things to take away from it. I mean, obviously, we don't like to get on any moral victories, but going into this weekend against Canisius, I think we really like where our game's at and the direction we're headed.
Yeah, how would you personally evaluate your team's performance so far this season? Because to me, it seems like your record doesn't really reflect how good of your team you've been performing because you've had close games against Quinnipiac, RIT, and Providence, and those were games I thought your team could have won. So just overall, how would you evaluate your team's performance?
I mean, definitely the last seven or so games, probably even more honestly, probably more like 9 or 10 games. I think we've been really solid in terms of really homing in our team identity, kind of figuring out how we're going to play. With that being said, I mean, obviously we don't like moral victories. I mean, those, like you said, those are games that we could have won, and we're disappointed that we weren't able to get the job done. But like you said, at the same time, they are really good teams, and we've taken most of them to overtime. But now it's just a matter of kind of putting it together and finding a way, to get some wins here, especially coming down, going in the second half.
Yeah, you have a series against Canisius coming up. So how are you preparing for that series, especially on the road? Just because your team still hasn't won a road game or just won their first road game this past weekend.
Yeah, I mean, I think personally, I'm a big fan of road trips. We haven't really had any yet this year, even last year, obviously due to COVID. But I think it's a great way for the guys to bond. We're kind of going in it the same way we do every series against any team. We're gonna do some video, work on the things that we need to work on, maybe see some of their tendencies, some of what they want to do. But at the end of the day, I mean, I think it's a great chance for us to really bond and have a good 3-4 days on the road while we enjoy a little Thanksgiving dinner too. So that'll be nice. I'm looking forward to that as well.
Yeah, definitely. Have you played Canisius yourself personally, or is this your first time going against that team?
This was my first time. We did play them in the championship game, Atlantic championship game last year, but I wasn't in that game, so this will be my first experience with them.
Yeah, and just being on the bench watching that team play, what are some things you noticed?
I noticed they're a hardworking team. They definitely have some skilled forwards, some solid D, and are obviously really good in net. So I think it's hard to find a weakness in their lineup, but at the same time, we know we got a good team too, and kind of what we're bringing to the table. So I mean, it'll be really entertaining games, and I really think it's a really big chance for us to make a statement and kind of string some more wins together.
Yeah, and like you said, this is one of your team's first road trips this season. So are there any differences playing in goal in a home game versus on the road?
Um, it definitely is. I mean, the biggest is obviously the change of scenery. Some rinks are a little bit bigger than others in college. Some are a little bit brighter, a little bit dimmer. So those honestly probably affect the game more than actually the fans. I mean, I think it's fun playing in front of away fans, honestly. I think it adds to the whole college atmosphere of, kind of being on the road or being in, quote unquote enemy territory. But yeah, I mean, I think the biggest difference between playing in our home rink or other rinks is just kind of things like the brightness, size of the rink, whatnot, how the boards bounce. But luckily I think we're getting in the day, at least a day before, so we'll have a chance to kind of, feel out the rink and see where if there's any bounces along the boards or whatnot, because that can ultimately affect the game a lot too. So
Yeah, definitely. And what's it been like having fans back in the rink from a goalie's perspective, especially being on the road? Just because I was watching highlights from the game against UMass, and it seemed like they had a pretty good student section
yeah,
behind you.
yeah, no, it's fun. I mean, like I said, I really like that atmosphere, and um, just kind of being in an arena with fans where whether they're cheering for or against you, it's definitely a big change from last year. I think for us, at least for me, the first time where I was like, okay, we're back is when we played North Dakota last year in North Dakota. I mean, they brought, I don't even know what the capacity was at the time, but they pretty much packed the, I think it was Shields Arena we played at, as much as they could. And I mean, it's just, like I said, it's just fun. It's awesome. No matter what kind of energy is in the building, it's great to have back. And I know it's something not only us, but all the teams missed it. So
Yeah, and just talk a little bit about your off season after that tournament experience. I'm going to get into that a little bit, but I kind of want to just start talking about the off season and preparing for this upcoming year. So, did you do anything interesting, whether it was hockey related or non-hockey related, this off season, and how was it overall?
this summer was pretty normal for me, honestly. I didn't really do too much traveling during the summers. I do spend at least a month or two. My girlfriend lives up here in Massachusetts, so I stay up with her and work out and skate up here, which is nice. But other than that, I mean, I didn't really travel or anything. It was kind of just spending time between there and back home in Erie. So the year before, the summer before, I went to Hilton Head Island for like 4 or 5 days, and me and my girlfriend got an Airbnb out there, and that was obviously really fun. But nothing like that this summer, unfortunately. But hoping to kind of travel a bit more this coming summer and get a little more vacation time.
Nice. Yeah, and did you face any challenges this off season compared to the previous one, or was things kind of more back to normal with ice time being easier to find and gyms not being closed as much as they were the previous off season?
Things are pretty much back to normal, I'd say. There wasn't much of uh, a scram to find ice or anything like that, or even work out. I mean, everything was pretty much open with, I want to say, no restrictions for the most part. So it was pretty, you know, I guess normal off season.
Yeah, and did your approach change or mindset change towards the beginning of the off season just because you know you're not going to have to face as many challenges as you did for the previous one?
I mean, yeah, I think the main thing was for me, I just kind of took what I learned from the previous season and off seasons and kind of applied it to, this off season. And obviously, you can't really take your foot off the gas, in terms of training and things like that. And so you really gotta dial those things in. And, obviously we're going to have more games this year. So even it's more so important that, taking better care of your conditioning and things like that. So, yeah, I mean, I kind of just take the lessons I learned from the past and kind of just applied it to the season or this off season.
Now, overall, how is training going, and what are you working on the most right now regarding your game? What are you hoping to improve on? I guess.
Well, this summer especially, but even I think every goalie wants to work on it is stick handling, puck handling. I mean, obviously there's nothing in my game where I feel like that can't get better. So I mean, obviously I'm always trying to improve. Even my strengths. But one thing for me that I think I felt like I could be more effective at was stick handling. Um, and so far this offseason or this season, I think it's gone pretty good. I think I've been a lot more comfortable playing the puck than I was the previous year. But that's something I'm still obviously working on a lot today and in practice now is just stick handling, having good communication with their D and whatnot. So um, it's something that if you're really good at it, it can help your team a lot. And I'm just trying to really dial in that skill.
Yeah, that's something I've noticed with goalies now is they're playing the puck more. I don't know if you've realized this as well, but going to a
Yeah,
game
yeah,
years
absolutely.
ago, I rarely saw the goalie play the puck unless it was like behind the net just to give it to the defenseman. But now you see like kind of the goalies going against some of the offensive players on the other team. How did that change start from your perspective?
I think it just kind of started more as more and more guys got good at it. They're starting to realize what they can and can't do. Um, and obviously, when you watch NHL, I mean, pretty much on any given night, you're going to find a goalie that's really good at playing the puck, or can make some passes himself, or just even if it's not a fancy play, they're going to make a smart play and put it in a safe area for their D or whoever's coming back. So I think probably just some more guys started to realize that it could be used, effectively and with relatively low risk, and simple plays. I think that's kind of when it started to, take off and be more prominent as it is today.
So I want to transition and talk about the beginning of your hockey career and kind of work all the way up to where you are now with AIC. So you're from Erie, Pennsylvania. So talk about growing up
Mm.
there and how'd you start playing hockey?
So I started playing when I was around 4 or 5, or I guess skating, and then a couple years after I started playing organized hockey. My dad, he got me into it. He's gonna put me on the ice. He didn't play growing up or anything though. He just kind of started playing in beer league, and he always really liked hockey, and just thought just wanted to get me into it. So and from there, I kind of just kept playing in Erie till I want to say my sophomore year of high school. But yeah, so when I was probably like 7 to when I was 15 or so, I've been just playing in Erie, and hockey's really not super big there like you might think it is. With having Mercyhurst there and obviously the Erie Otters, it's hockey's not exactly huge, or it's not like Massachusetts or Minnesota where it's I don't want to, not necessarily the main sport, but it's right up there with football and whatnot. So yeah, my sophomore year of high school, I played U16 in Pittsburgh, and I played there for a season with the Esmark Stars. And then the year after that, it was when I went to the NAHL with the Austin Bruins and did 1 year there. And then after that, I was in Des Moines for a full season. And the year after that, I was in Des Moines to start, and then got traded to Omaha. And I ended up playing all the way up until Christmas there. And then that's when I ended up going into Providence. But yeah, so 2.5 years of juniors, and then years U16 before that was kind of like the main bulk of what really led me to get a lot of exposure and just be seen by a lot of teams.
Now, did you start off playing goalie or were you a player to start off and then transition into being a goalie?
I was a player. I was a player. I want to say until I was like 10 or so. Like kind of, I would like go in goal though, because when you're young, obviously growing up, guys will rotate through net, and that's kind of what I did. And then I think I want to say it was when I was 10 or 11. The team I tried out for needed full time goalie, and I always really liked it, and I kind of wanted to end up doing that anyway. So I just kind of stuck with that.
Yeah, I was listening to an interview with Braden Holtby, and he was saying like how it's important for goalies to be players just because you get that perspective of the game and it actually helps being a goalie. Do you notice that being a goalie now that it was really beneficial to be a player growing up?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Actually, I still play with my buddies back home. I play pickup and whatnot, and I skate out too. Obviously, it's not anywhere near the level of competition, like that I'm used to now, or even back in juniors. But it's still nice to be able to see the game from a different perspective and really see kind of on certain angles or certain plays, what's available, or even when you're shooting on net, kind of what your tendency might be. And yeah, I think it's really beneficial. And obviously, if it's something that goalies can keep doing, I definitely recommend it. Just see the game from a different angle.
Now, who was your favorite player growing up? Was it someone on the Penguins or Flyers, or was it just another NHL goalie that didn't play in Pennsylvania?
Yeah, I was a big Penguins fan growing up, so I love Fleury, and he's still one of my favorite players, and I still love watching him play. But yeah, he was the main one. I liked watching a lot of other goalies too. Like I liked Jonathan Quick a lot, watching him play. Um, Trying to think. No one else really was like I thought that like I really like them or I want to be like them, other than probably Fleury and Jonathan Quick. But those are my two favorite growing up.
Now, like you said before, you started off your junior career in the North American Hockey League with the Austin Bruins. So, how did you get the opportunity to go to the NAHL and play for Austin?
So it was, I want to say towards the end of my U16 year, they ended up offering me a tender agreement, and I think I might have talked to a couple other teams too, but I really liked Austin, and I had some connections there with kind of knowing their coach and talking to him and getting to know him a bit. So I just thought it was the best spot for me, and I really liked. I really felt ready. I felt like I could contribute right away, and I'm really glad I ended up signing there because I really liked it and really enjoyed getting to know everyone there.
Yeah, so do those North American Hockey League teams like scout like youth teams around the country? That's how they get players, or is it kind of like the USHL where like it's the same thing, but there's like a draft kind of system for it?
It's kind of similar to the USHL. I mean, they do have more tenders in the USHL, so I think it's more common for players to tend in the NAHL than it would be the USHL. Um, but I want to say there's a combine in the NAHL too. I could be wrong. I'm not sure, but and obviously there's a lot of showcase tournaments. I played in the NAPHL, so that was a big thing for the NHL, and pretty much all the teams would be there with a lot of scouts just looking at guys. So no, that's a big exposure thing.
Now, I've heard Austin is a super nice city. So, what was your experience like playing there, and what's the hockey culture like in Texas? Just because whenever you think of Texas, you don't really think of
Mm.
hockey.
Well, actually, it's not Austin, Texas. Austin, Minnesota is
Oh,
actually the
okay. I
town.
actually
Yeah,
didn't
yeah,
know
yeah,
that.
yeah. So it's Austin is a small town. It is nice though. It's I don't know how many people live there, but it's really small. It's actually called Spam Town, USA. That's where the spam factory is, the canned ham and whatnot. So that's kind of a big deal down there or up there. But it was a great time. I mean, I really liked kind of having the small town. They really put a lot of emphasis on the Austin Bruins and how the team does, and the fans there are super passionate. So it was great, and I had great billets there too. The Coopers, they actually are the owners too, of the team. So I mean, they were great experience, and I can't say enough good things about it.
Yeah, I know there's a team in Corpus Christi, Texas. So I just assumed that there's the
Yeah,
team in Austin. So I apologize
yeah.
to our listeners
No,
about
no,
that. I should
no
have done
worries.
more
Yeah,
research.
there's a few the All South teams are in Texas too, so it would be easy to confuse that. And then
Yeah,
that's what I first thought of too when I heard it before I knew anything about it. So
yeah.
mm,
Did you only play teams like in Minnesota, or do you play teams like all around the countries? I know they have like different divisions in the NAHL.
yeah. So in the showcase, you play teams from all around because they all come to meet up at. I want to say I forget the name of the rink, but it's the really big one, the big huge rink in Minnesota with like 10 pads or whatever it is. But that's like the big where you really play other divisions. But from other than that, you pretty much just play teams in your own division. I think we were in the All Central, so we played teams like Minot. Um, we played Cooley, we played the Minnesota Magicians. Bismarck was another big one. So yeah, mainly like basically teams in the region. I mean, I think our farthest bus ride was 8 or 9 hours, and I think that was to Minot.
Mhm.
But other than that, everything is pretty close
You
within a
then went
day's
on,
drive or so.
yeah,
Mm.
those bus rides. How'd you handle those? Because they seem
Yeah,
pretty long.
yeah. Pretty much just sleep, honestly, especially after the games. But I mean, I just always listen to music or podcasts or whatever. Find ways to kill time.
Absolutely.
Mm.
Well, then you went on to play in the USHL. So how'd you get the opportunity to go make the transition from the NAHL to the USHL?
So in USHL, I was originally drafted by Chicago, and then they ended up dropping me, and then Des Moines claimed my rights. So that's kind of how that whole thing started. And the coach at the time was Dave Allison, and he really liked me, and really wanted to give me an opportunity. So yeah, that's kind of how that started. And then after my season in the NAHL, I ended up going to main camp with Des Moines, and ended up making the team. And the rest is kind of history from there. Um,
Mhm.
Obviously, I didn't really have the greatest of careers there in Des Moines, but it's still a great experience for me, and definitely a necessary step in my my hockey career.
Yeah, what were the biggest differences you noticed between the USHL and the North American Hockey League? Because from just talking to players, it's a little more of a grittier league and then all. But as a goalie, I think you don't probably have to experience too much of that physical play.
Yeah, I mean, I think in the USHL, the guys, for the most part, are going to be a little more skilled. Um, the speed thing, I don't really notice, didn't really notice a big difference there. But I think in the USHL, guys can make a couple more plays than the NAHL. So it's just kind of just being ready, you know, and patient with guys when they're making plays, not to overcommit or over challenge, things like that, because they can make you pay for things like that.
Now, thinking back on your USHL experience, what's the best memory you have there?
Best USHL experience, probably. I want to say playing in the USHL prospects game was a lot of fun. That was really cool, and in Kearney, Nebraska, I think it was. There's a lot of good players there, and uh, that or playing for the Team USA in the World Junior A Challenge was really cool too. I've never represented USA before, and that was a really cool experience to be able to do. And unfortunately, we came up short, but it was. I think we won silver that year, but we, it's still a great time to meet other players and get a ton of exposure to other people in the game.
Now, how did the USHL help prepare you for college hockey?
Just the exposure to the talent, and the players they're going to be playing against in college. Pretty, a good majority of them played in the USHL or the BCHL or the NAHL. Any of those leagues, I think, are really going to prepare you really well for college and make you see kind of just where the other competition is and what you need to do to either get there or try to dominate those guys. So yeah, just playing every day, even in practice with that competition was huge for me.
Now, I have to ask you about this because during your time in the USHL, you got drafted in the NHL to the Carolina Hurricanes. What do you remember from your draft day experience, and what was your reaction when you found out you were going to Carolina?
I was pretty shocked. I ended up going to the draft. I just kind of want to have the experience, and my family came with me, so we were able to do some things around Dallas. Have a little vacation out of it. But no, I mean, I was really shocked. I talked to a few teams before. Carolina wasn't one of them. So when it kind of got to the later stages of the draft, I was kind of really just focusing on the teams that I talked to, whatnot. And then when Carolina ended up picking me, I was pretty shocked, and I didn't really know what to do. I mean, I didn't know. I know I had to go to the table and shake everyone's hand and whatnot. But so I mean, doing that was pretty surreal. But other than that, I mean, it's a great memory, and I'm really glad that I ended up going.
Yeah, and how are the development camps in Carolina, um, from your experience from doing them?
They're great. I've only done two just because COVID. Obviously, that year no one did anything, and then this previous summer, I don't know how many teams ended up having a development camp, but Carolina wasn't one of them, and most of them were pretty late anyway. Um, but they've been great. I mean, it's really development based, so we only do one game at the end, and it's like a 3-on-3, 4-on-4 thing. But other than that, it's all like in the weight room and practice, things like that. They have guys come and talk to you, tell you how to be a pro, different things of that nature, and then just meeting everyone there, like meeting Coach Brenda Moore and all those his staff, and really kind of talking to some big names in hockey that you never thought you'd be around is pretty cool.
Yeah, what's Coach Brendamore like in person? Because seeing him on TV, he seems like a really passionate guy, but he's in great shape as well. That's something else I noticed.
Yeah, oh yeah, he definitely takes that seriously. But him as just a person is really cool. I mean, he knew my name, he knew kind of my whole situation with hockey and what was going on. So just for him to kind of just know that little bit about me was really cool, and it's definitely went a long way, and it's still something I remember was him actually knowing my name for the first time. Is hearing that was pretty unreal.
Now, in 2018, obviously, Carolina drafted Andrei Svechnikov. So I have to ask you, was he part of that development camp that season you got drafted, and what was it like going against him?
He was, yeah, and it was pretty cool. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of hype around him being second overall pick, and seeing what he's doing now is pretty awesome. Just to you know, kind of watch some of the things he does is it's mesmerizes you sometimes. But yeah, going against him was really cool, and it was also another little confidence boost to me where I was like, all right, I'm out here with these guys and we're on the same ice. It's like obviously I deserve to be here, and it kind of felt like, all right, I've been on the ice with second overall pick in the draft, and he's now one of the best players in the NHL. So it's yeah, it's definitely really cool.
He didn't attempt any Michigan moves on you during development camp because I
No,
know that's what he tries to
no,
do.
luckily, yeah, luckily he didn't get me with any of those, or he didn't even attempt any of them. So, but yeah, I can't say it'd be the same story now. But
Yeah.
hmm.
Well, what's the communication like with you in Carolina right now? Do they talk to you during the college season, or they kind of leave that to AIC to develop you?
Usually they'll reach out. I'll probably hear from them every 2 to 3 weeks. Just checking in. I mean, obviously they're watching my games, but from like the coaching standpoint, they really just leave that to the AIC. If I have any questions or anything, I could come to them and talk to their development, their goalie guy. But other than that, it's really just kind of checking in. How you doing? I watched your last few games, blah blah. Things like that. So,
Hmm.
but everything hockey related is pretty much just left to AIC.
Now, originally you committed to Providence, so I have to ask you, what was your recruitment process like there, and why did you choose to go to Providence originally before going to AIC?
So Providence was, I think, I was talking like 4 or 5 schools that I was like really interested in going to. Um, and then Providence, I had a good relationship with Chris May out there, who was their goalie guy at the time and assistant coach. He reached out to me. I want to say the first time I talked to him was probably after the NAHL showcase. Um, so yeah, I talked to him, and we kind of had a good connection right from the start. The first time I met him, and it kind of just kept getting down to it. And I really liked everything else about Providence. Loved the school, loved the location. Um, when I went there for my visit, I had a great experience. Met a lot of the guys, so everything was awesome about it. And I have no regrets with obviously choosing Providence. I mean, I've met a lot of great people there. Some of my best friends. Yeah, so it was a great experience. Unfortunately, hockey reasons, I had to make the hard decision to ultimately leave, but I still have no regrets about my time when I was there.
Yeah, well, talk about your
Mm.
time there at Providence. Even though you didn't play any games, what was your experience like there overall?
Overall, it was all positive. Um, all the guys there from the half year I was there to the full year of my quote unquote freshman year was awesome too. I mean, just getting to know all the guys there and having great goalie partners like Hayden Hockey, Mike Lackey, and Gabe. They're all great, and we all had a great relationship, and I learned a lot from all of them. So I'm really thankful for that, and I'm obviously thankful, like I was talking about earlier, just kind of met everyone there and still have the relationship I do with the people there. But yeah, so it's like I said, kind of bittersweet having to leave there, but at the same time, I'm super happy that I was able to get this opportunity at AIC, and definitely definitely don't regret coming here.
Yeah, what was your transfer process like? What made you want to go to AIC versus other schools you might have looked into during the transfer process? And just what's that like being a transfer goalie?
So with AIC, they were the most interested school. They definitely pushed the hardest for me, and that definitely um, caught my eye because I mean, in the transfer process or just recruitment in general, I mean, you can hear a lot of things, but when a team is really passionate about trying to get you and say they want you and willing to put in the work for it, it definitely doesn't go unnoticed. So ultimately, that's the big reason why I ended up choosing AIC. It was just kind of how much you know they recruited me and really saw a future with me.
Now you started playing games with AIC last year, so my question to you is, what was the biggest adjustment you had to make to college hockey? How is the game different in college versus juniors?
Um, I'd say the biggest adjustment. Well, I've personally done a lot of adjustments. A lot of them took took place at Providence. I was getting out working with the goalie coach there quite a bit. Obviously wasn't playing, so I had a lot of time I could really work on some skills, work on things I needed to. So kind of when game time came, I wasn't super nervous, because I knew I'd put in a lot of work working on, different aspects of my game and whatnot. But obviously once you're in the game and, feeling it out, it kind of starts to feel normal again. But, like even from the start, I wasn't super nervous. I just kind of wanted to, get into it. I was more or less excited, just to kind of be there and be playing. So it was a really awesome experience. And I think we ended up winning the game like 3-1 or something. So it was even better.
Yeah, and last year you had to face a lot of challenges, like every team did because of the pandemic. How'd you handle those challenges that were brought with an inconsistent schedule, number one, but also not playing in front of any fans?
Um, Not playing in front of any fans was honestly, it kind of just felt like a practice at times. So having to create your own, I guess, energy with the team, which we have a great group of guys in our locker room, so it wasn't hard to do. We all knew the importance of what we were doing every night. Um, but the inconsistent schedule was probably more of a challenge, I'd say, just because we literally got to game days where we packed the bus and we're about to go, and then we get a call and, oh, this team has COVID, we can't do it, so now we're practicing instead, or we're going to scrimmage ourselves or something like that. So it's probably like 5 or 6 games where we're just about ready to go, and the night before or the morning of, we find out the other team has COVID or something like that. So it was really, at the time, it was kind of annoying, unfortunate, but looking back now, I think we handled it really well and uh, made the most of what we could.
Yeah, I feel like mentally that would be really annoying because like you're all prepared, you're trying to get yourself mentally ready for the game, especially as a goalie since the mental part of the game is super huge. And then all of a sudden,
Exactly. Yeah.
just the game gets canceled, especially if you're going on the road. Like, I don't know, how do you
hmm
handle that mentally as well?
Yeah. It's I think like everyone did, the past year. So it's just part of the times, everything's kind of unpredictable. So you just got to be ready for it. And, you know, um, like I said, I think pretty much every time we ended up not playing, we did a scrimmage or some sort of practice. So just try to make the most of practice and with what you got.
Now, you split time with Stefano Durante last season. So my question is, what was it like playing with him, and what did you learn playing with him last year and splitting time with him? Because I had him on the podcast, super great guy.
Yeah, stuff's awesome. He's got another guy that I really learned a lot from, just in terms of his preparation. He's a super hard worker. Really takes it seriously, and he had I'm trying to think. He did end up having an injury, kind of like towards the end of the year, so he was out for a little bit of time. But like I said, seeing him work hard to rehab it and get back and get back to skating was really cool. And like you said, he is a super great guy, great kid, and whatever he does, he's going to be successful in. So it was really cool to get to know him and still have a relationship with him.
So you won the Atlantic Hockey Championship last season as well. So talk about what it meant to you winning that championship, especially because your team dealt with many challenges, like we talked about with the inconsistent schedule and also not playing in front of any fans.
Yeah, so going into the playoff weekend, we hadn't played a game in like 60 days, I think, because we had COVID. So we were out for a couple weeks, and then the teams are supposed to play had COVID. So there's a long stretch where we didn't really get to play any games for basically 2 months. So, it was getting back into it. It wasn't something we were super comfortable with. We obviously wanted to play games, you know, have some knock some rust off before the playoffs, but we all bared down and were able to get it done. The games weren't perfect, they weren't pretty, but we were able to grind out some wins. And when it mattered, we showed up, and obviously winning our third title in the last 3 years was really cool. I wasn't there for the first two, but just kind of be around the guys that did win all three is really awesome. And it's not hard to see how special winning that is for them and for our team.
Yeah, and obviously, Coach Eric Lang is a big reason why AIC is having a lot of success recently. So, what's it like playing under him, and what have you learned under him as a goalie?
Coach Lang is awesome, and I can't say enough good things about him. Just the relationship he tries to develop with you is, as not only a player but a person. Wants to get to know you personally, and he understands, some of the struggles and challenges of a season. But he's awesome. I mean, for what it's worth, I say he's easily the best coach in college hockey. Just in terms of what he's been able to do and how he can play teams, teams that are ranked, really high and have been elite programs for the last, 5 or so years, like UMass, Providence, Quinnipiac. Those aren't easy games to play, especially when you play a lot of them in the first half of the season, and even going back to last year, with playing Quinnipiac, and AIC always has a tough non-conference schedule. So it's, kind of what he's been able to do and who he's been able to get here, and the games that we've been able to put together, and the way we play is awesome. And I'm really, like I said, really, really lucky to have a guy like him.
Now, talk about what it was like playing in the tournament last year in North Dakota against North Dakota. And what did you take away from that experience, even though your team lost and you kind of got thrown into the fire a little bit in that game since you didn't start?
Yeah, that was an amazing experience. I was actually my freshman year, or the year I went in spring semester to Providence. That team ended up going to the Frozen Four, so I was around them a lot. I've been around the tournament and kind of understood, just how good all the teams playing in it are. But to actually be playing and, get in the game, and obviously against, at the time, I think they were the first rank or the first seed in the whole tournament. So it was really cool, and to have the fans there and the energy in the building was surreal. I mean, just going out, seeing some of these guys and being on the ice, with the North Dakota green jerseys, it's, you see them play on TV a lot, or, on social media, whatnot. But to actually be there in the tournament and have that experience, and, get a chance to play when there's so many other good teams, that are at home and don't get the opportunity to do it was really cool.
Yeah, and obviously, what did you learn from that experience that's helped you this season?
I just learned, no matter what the situation is, you got to be ready to go. And, whether we're down 4 goals or it's a 0-0 game, we kind of just got to stay in the moment and take it one shot at a time. It's really, it's really basic and cliche. You hear it thrown around all the time, but it's true. And listen, enjoy it and have fun with it. Hockey's fun. You're supposed to enjoy it. And, playing in a setting like that is fun. So.
Now, I want to transition to a segment I like to call the non-hockey segment, where I ask you some non-hockey questions just to get to know you a little bit. So my first one is,
Mm-hmm.
if you could have lunch with anyone in the world, who would it be and why?
Living or
It
dead?
doesn't matter, yeah.
Doesn't matter. Geez, I don't know. I want to say, I guess I'd say my grandparents. They passed away a few years ago, and I was really close with them. So just another lunch with them would be cool.
Yeah, what would you talk
Mm.
about?
Probably just, geez, there's been, I don't know how many years now. Probably like, I honestly don't even know. That'd be a lot to catch up on. So I'm sure we'd start somewhere. But um, yeah, I'm sure they'd have a ton of questions for me, and so
Mhm.
we'd start somewhere. They'd find a good spot.
Yeah, definitely.
Mm.
Now, speaking of your teammates, who's the funniest teammate you have at AIC?
Funniest guy on the team, probably my roommate. I want to say Chris Theodore. He's pretty funny. He's a goofy kid. He's full of energy. Um, kind of like an Energizer bunny. So he's always going. He's always got something to say. So he's definitely up there.
Now, who has the best style on the team besides yourself, obviously?
Best style. I could probably give you three guys. I'd say got really good style. Theodore's one of them. Brett Callahan's got some pretty good style, and Zach Galambos is, he's got it going on. He's got some good style. So
Nice. Who's
I'd
the
say all
best?
three of those guys.
Yeah, and who's the best trash talker on the team? Who throws out the best chirps? Are you paying attention to that as a goalie, or do you hear it but you just don't say it?
Yeah, not during games, but like in the locker room, guys throw around chirps quite a bit. So, uh, one of my partners, Calvaruso, and we kind of like to chirp guys. It's kind of like our thing in the locker room. So we usually go at it with a few of the guys, but he's got some good ones. He throws around some good chirps. So
Nice. And then since the holiday season is coming up, I had some Christmas holiday theme questions. So first one is like, what's your favorite holiday like movie?
favorite holiday movie, I love A Christmas Story. It's probably my favorite, but I mean, I love Christmas Vacation. All the classics. So, but those are probably my favorite or my top two.
Best Christmas song or worst Christmas song?
Ooh, the best one. Um, I don't know. I actually really like Rocking Around the Christmas Tree. I think that's a good one. And the worst one, I don't even know. I mean, All I Want for Christmas Is You, I think, is way overplayed. So,
Oh
I
yeah.
mean, it's all right, but I can only hear it so many times.
Yeah, especially since people
Yeah.
start playing it like after Halloween ends. It's like it's a
Yeah, like
bit
when you
too
hear it
early
in
for me.
October, it's just way too much. So
Yeah.
it just adds on to the hate.
I totally agree with you on that.
Yeah.
And then I guess the going off the music question, but what's your guilty pleasure song?
Ooh, guilty pleasure. Uh, I don't know. Actually, I really like "Good for You" by Olivia Rodrigo. I think that's a good song, good tune. So that always gets me going a bit.
Yeah. Do they play it at the
Yeah.
arena at all?
Sometimes I do. Yeah, it's in between whistles. You'll hear it. I mean,
Yeah,
because of how popular it's been, it's on pretty much everywhere. So,
that's awesome.
but yeah, that's probably my guilty pleasure song.
And then last non-hockey question. This isn't really non-hockey, but what's your favorite road arena to play in or just to be in from your experience so far?
So far, I would have to say probably UMass, just
Oh, that
because
place is
of
awesome.
yeah, the arena is amazing. I mean, their student section is great. Um, it's a big rink too. I kind of like playing on wider ice. But yeah, the whole atmosphere, obviously, is coming off a national championship. Anytime you're in that building, it's going to be a tough game to play. So I'd probably say, yeah, UMass is my favorite.
Well, back to some hockey questions now. My first one is, what advice would you give a younger players trying to make it to college hockey?
I would just say, it doesn't really matter. I mean, it does, but at the same time, it doesn't, because I mean, I wasn't a really good junior player. It's kind of an average AAA player. But just the more you stick with it, and if you really, dig deep and analyze your game and really find your weaknesses and continue to work on them and take the time to really develop yourself and be ready for college or juniors or whatever you're trying to get into, you'll be ready. And it's just a matter of, digging deep and finding, where do I need to get better, or what can I do to get better? How can I improve this? And I've had a lot of great people kind of help me with that, whether it be coaches or, family, friends, I've seen things in my game or even just as a person, but just kind of taking it all in and really seeing, doing a self-reflection of what I need to do to get better and improve is, I think it's stuff like that is invaluable, and just kind of taking all your experiences and, adding with that is great.
Now, do you have any shout outs you'd like to give to your teammates, family members, friends, anyone I might have not mentioned in this podcast? Feel free to shout them out now.
I'm just gonna hold shout out to all the AIC boys. You know, shout out to I'll give a shout out to some of the Providence guys too. Still got a lot of great buddies over there. So and yeah, shout out to anyone that I know who's listening. Shout out to you guys.
Awesome. And then last question or I guess statement is, do you have any message to any of the AIC fans that are listening to this podcast or anything you just want to plug in? Now's your time to kind of say whatever you want, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's been, it's obviously our record says it's been a disappointing start, but we're getting into some league play. I think we're going to start stringing some wins together. So just stick with us. We'll figure it out here and we'll get some wins going.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on, Jake. I really appreciate it. I wish you all the best for the rest of the season. I will be seeing your team play in person when you guys visit UConn in December, so that should be a
Oh,
fun
awesome. Yeah,
non-conference
yeah,
game. So hopefully I get
yeah.
to see you start. I think that'll be fun, and also see former UConn player Brian Regali play as well. He's a beast. I'm assuming you love playing with him as well.
Yeah, Brian's awesome. He's super hard worker. He'll do whatever it takes to get a win. So he's
Awesome.
awesome. Yeah.
Well, I'll
Oh,
see
but
you
yeah,
at
thanks
that
for
game.
having me. Yeah, I really appreciate it, and I had a great time doing